Hi everybody, welcome to the Stratosphere Lounge. I'm your host, Bill Whittle. It's February 4th, 2021. I hope everybody's doing well. New haircut, Bill? Yes, as a matter of fact. The person who'd been cutting my hair for quite a long time has been really sick. Hello to all the new people in the comment section. And not with COVID either. He's really quite ill and she's making a recovery, so that's good. But anyway, it's good to be here. Hope everybody's doing well. We're going to take questions from the members only blog tonight. And if we get through with those, we'll go back to see if maybe we find something in the comment section live or something like that. Trying to figure out not a whole lot really to talk about that I haven't already talked about off the top of my head anyway. I did do the Ramona show last week, and it went very well, and we just posted that just a short time ago. I think just a couple hours, 3 hours ago, something like that. So that's up there, and that was a lot of fun as well. So that's members only. You guys can take a look at that. Tell me what you think about that, and we'll take it from there. So we're going to have the questions from the Stratosphere Lounge forum page that's been put up, and that'll be about it. I'm pretty much just I'm tired, basically. That's basically it. I'm just really beat. I'm thinking about. In fact, I'm not thinking about it. I'm really going to try and do this. Natasha and I both, relatively late night people, and we have been all our lives. It's really uncommon for me to be in bed before midnight. And so we have a 6 o'clock call for the Moving Back to America show live, and it's just it's just been taking a toll. The problem mostly is they build up this huge sleep debt, and then on the weekends I just crash, and that's not really fair to her. So what I was thinking of doing is maybe making Fridays still do the show. I just won't do it live. We'll see how that feels, and then. I'm actually thinking seriously about maybe just taking, when I say taking Friday off, I don't mean off from activities here. I mean, well, here's the problem. Before we started doing these extra shows, which take an awful lot of extra energy and a lot of extra time, I was moving things along pretty well on the other stuff that I think is just so important. And I thought I could get things done in the morning, get all the political stuff out the door, and then still have time to get at least a couple hours in every day and move that TV show project further along. And it's just not happening. It's just because by the time I'm done with the political stuff in the middle of the afternoon, I'm just like, man, I'm just tired. So I think tomorrow what we'll do is I'll try doing the show, but not doing it live, and I'll put for those of you, most of you who are in the morning are also here for Stratosphere Lounge, so there won't be a live show tomorrow, but I'll put up a message on that, and then we'll see how it goes. Maybe I'll see how it looks if I take the whole day to work on the other stuff. This is something that causes me a lot of. I guess anxiety is a fair enough word. We've got a lot of new members, a lot of old members are still here, obviously. We're very, very, very grateful about that. But my concern is that I mean, I don't really hear it a lot. I can just kind of feel it sometimes, and occasionally I hear it. I'm concerned that there are significant numbers of members and audience people as well who think that this whole idea of working on a TV show, a science fiction show that basically puts the entire American Revolution in the future, tells a story in the future. I know most people, or hopefully most people, understand that and the value of it, but I do know there are some people that think that I'm wasting their membership money by basically reading comic books. I don't read comic books, but that's generally the vibe. And I'd like very much to maybe kind of make this official. So I think maybe one thing I could look at doing is just maybe dedicating at least Friday to this kind of work, and then doing updates on that. I'm going to have to do another. I'm not going to have to. I'm going to want to do a second YouTube channel that's specifically for this project, which I want to call The Colonies, which I like very much. And a number of people have pointed out from looking at the lighting tests that I've done that that they're very curious about it. You can pick up a fairly big audience, a completely different audience, just talking about how you can make things look good in Unreal and 3D Studio and all the rest of it. But if I could kind of make that kind of an official part of the stuff, make it like members only content. I and thank you for that, Shelby. I am and thank you for that, Texican. Um, I would feel an awful lot better about it. So I think what I'll do tomorrow is do the show, regular Moving Back to America show, not live, and then I'll start to see if I can get things set up so that I can bring other stuff in there. The the power of it is just so amazing to me, and every time I think about this issue, especially since inauguration day, it just feels to me like I know some people think it's frivolous, and I don't want it to be seen that way. Especially, like I said, this last membership push has just made such a fundamental difference in my life and everybody else's life here at the company. It's just tremendous, and I don't want to jeopardize that at all. I'm really doing my level best to protect that. Um, uh, Bart's Treasure says, "What can members do to help you make the colonies happen?" See, that just that question alone, honestly, Bart, is just tremendous, um, tremendously encouraging. So I think actually so encouraging. There's 3 or 4 comments in the space of the last, just 3 minutes, 2 minutes. Um, just that alone has really encouraged me. Just honestly, in real time, it really is really encouraging. And so I think what I'll probably do is start to find a way to get this um, into the mix and make it members only and stuff. Uh, so that is lovely, and I'm gonna start looking at it that way. I have managed to pick up a very very important ally on this, and I don't have I'm certainly not at liberty to say who it is, but it's a physical person in Los Angeles who I met just a couple of 3 4 weeks ago, I guess, who's going to be not only helping me on the project but basically practically partnering on it. And he's a special effects guy. He was I told him about what I wanted to do, and he told me about some shows he'd worked on, and I didn't know what these things were. And he said, "Well, when we started on Babylon 5, and you were on Babylon 5? Yeah, it was fun kind of thing. Anyway, after Babylon 5, we moved over to Battlestar Galactica. You were on Battlestar Galactica? You did? Yeah. Battlestar Galactica was fun. Wasn't as much as when we were on Firefly. You worked on Firefly? Yeah. So that's as much of a hint as you get. But in any event, I will talk to him and see. But we've had a couple of great meetings, and he provides so much structure and expertise, and just in terms of the viability of the project, to have a guy who has that kind of experience. And I really feel like I shouldn't have said that, to be honest with you. Um, I hope, because I think that's actually it's like the classic Simpsons joke, where it's like Principal Skinner says, "Well, we don't want to reveal the name of this student. He gets on the PA and he says something to the effect of, on the PA says." Uh, L. Simpson, will you report to the you know what? That's actually too specific. Lisa S. Will you report to the office? And I just thought, oh, good lord, it was hilarious. It's one of my favorite Simpsons jokes of all time. Anyway, it's it's very, very, very encouraging, uh, and and has given me enormous confidence in the ability to get this thing actually done. Because right now I have so many physical, like 3D assets, and so many things to learn how to do, and things, and it's just great having somebody who's gotten shows out the door, and and that's been really tremendous. So good news and good sign, and I'm going to just set aside some time. Maybe I'll set Fridays aside and get things going, like that second YouTube channel, and get all of those things a spinning. So that's been very encouraging. Thank you. The work is, I'm just the little test renders. I'm just blown away by it. Another aspect about working about somebody who really knows what they're doing is the familiarity with how individual shots happen. Had a chance to talk about that to some degree, and for somebody without much experience in terms of getting them actually out the door, you tend to think a little monolithically. I'm going to do this shot in 3D Studio or Blender, which I'm just getting into, and so there it is. And then a person who's had experience with this and has done literally hundreds, if not thousands, of individual effect shots, then says something like, well, you may want to do this in this software, and you could probably just get away with this in Photoshop. And part of it is almost like, oh, you cheated in Photoshop, I don't know how to get over this. It's a real thing for me, seriously. You have this incredible 3D model, and you have this 3D model of these planets, and commissioned a guy to do some planet surfaces for me, and he's tremendous. And you've got all these assets, and this has got to be unique to me, because this doesn't make any sense at all, none. But when I hear that like an element is of like a Photoshop element, a flat 2D element, I'm disappointed. I wanted, it's like I kind of want this whole world, this whole simulation thing to work. And there were moments when I would catch myself and say, well, that's cheating. You just have to just kind of smack yourself in the face and say, hey, dummy, everything you're doing is cheating. All of it. The 3D animation is cheating. None of this is real. None of it. And once you can break out of that, and and just start looking at things sensibly, then there you go. He mentioned something that blew my mind. He mentioned miniatures. What? Oh yeah, miniatures. They blow up real good in slow motion. I thought, this is tremendous. So I'm very excited about that. Anyway, so that's that, and thanks for the encouragement. I'll start getting that thing going if I can. Speaking of Marusha Dark, there's so many new names, makes me happy too. Said if it were all live action, even if it was all live action, it's still cheating. Exactly right, Marusha. There's nothing behind those walls except cardboard and 2x4s, and the doors don't really work. And it's funny, because I remember thinking about the times I've talked a couple times about having met Bill Mooney, formerly Billy Mooney, who was Will Robinson on the original Lost in Space show. And I really envied him so much, and it just seemed like, wow, such a cool thing. But sometimes I realize he's like the only guy who never really got to enjoy Lost in Space, because he's the only guy that realized that, inside of the Jupiter 2 is just plywood and this he got to see the guys moving the styrofoam rocks. One guy bringing in like 7 gigantic boulders and just kind of laying them out. So, uh, yeah, it's got to be tough. Plus he never got to hear. He never really got to hear the robot. I want to say that it was Bob May, somebody May. I think it was Bob May in the robot, and then I think it was Dick Tufeld did the voice, that iconic voice. But when they're on the set, he never gets to hear the robot's voice. He just hears a guy in the inside the suit. And I think I mentioned this once before on this show. I found out that since Bob May inside the suit had to run the bubble and the pinchers and all that stuff, he had to also do the voice. He had to blink the lights on the robot along with the dialogue, and he found out that the only way he could do all of these things was to put the voice switch on the underneath his arm. So he's talking, and at the same time he's flashing the lights. And if you right arm, I think, and once you found that out, if you look at Lost in Space carefully, you can see that when the robot's talking, it's very, very, very subtle, but you can see just a tiny little bit of motion underneath the right arm. I love stories like that. I just think that's just really, really tremendous. Anyway, we talked about a bunch of scenes, and I have to basically write the script for the pitch reel. That in itself is a sign of somebody with experience. I've been trying to slowly raise this crop across the board of literally hundreds of individual assets, trying to get them up to speed and get them looking up to the standards I want them to look. And this great advice I got was, you really need to write the script, because then we can break down this trailer, this teaser trailer, and we can break it down shot by shot and then start building the shots. But I'm just drowning in a sea of details, hundreds of different 3D assets, lots of commissioned work, tremendously talented artists, and one of them is an Italian in Germany, and one of them is in Bulgaria. The texture artist is in Bulgaria, and I've gotten really, wouldn't say close to these people, but I've certainly gotten to like them. I think I have it here. I know I have it here somewhere. Give me a second. The guy who did the textures for the exploration ship is tremendous, and I'm virtually positive I've got the still right here someplace. Let's see if I can find it. Behold. Yeah, this is the work he did on. I've got an exploration storyline, and it's great. You have to weave these things together, and this is how television works. Especially, you've got one storyline, and then you go to the B story, and then that allows you to jump forward on the timeline on the A story, and ideally you might have three storylines. Been watching a lot of Vikings lately. And that show was so good in seasons 1 and 2, and okay in 3, and now Natasha and I are into 4, and it's just terrible. It's going to get better, I know. It's been off the air for a while, but you've got these different locations, different storylines, and the beauty of that from a writing point of view is that you get to tell a little bit of your story here, and then you jump over here, and then all kinds of action happens off camera on these other two storylines, so that you can just kind of jump back and forth, and it feels linear, but it really just gives you an incredible chance to kind of move around. Now, this is a big image, so I may have to rescale this, but I'll just drop this in on top just so you can see the quality of this guy's work. The Mesh is another independent artist, but when you take a Mesh, I saw this Mesh without textures, I thought, oh, I love the looks of this thing. And then Sammy, my texture guy, did this, so I'll just drag this in here, hopefully. Yeah. Let me try seeing if I import it. You know what? I'll just scale it with that. I am very, 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 very happy with this. Make it a little bit smaller. I just love it, and that's the exploration ship. It's the USS Armstrong. It's one of 5 or 6, and they're named after first one would be, well, it depends on how many I want to do. It would be Korolev and Goddard and Gagarin, and all of that. And this is the, as I say, this is the exploration ship. And since I'm here, and since we're having a fun time talking about it, I'll show you the other hero ship, which is the warship, which is not textured yet. I'm working on that. It's just fabulous. That's just a gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous design, and very different. But it's still got, I don't know. I think I can make this. I can make this ship into a character. I have no doubt about that. Give me 1 second. I'll show you the. I'll show you the actual warship for the like the naval storyline. Hang on a second here. Nope. Here. Hang on. Give me a second. I'm working on it. It's cool too. This very cool. And they look cool together because they're designed by the same artist. This is something else too, by the way. There is so much talent out there. There's so much freelance talent. You have to sort through a lot of chaff, but there is so much freelance talent out there, and I really love the idea of being able to utilize that. And from a cost-effective point of view, it's simply incredible. Many of these artists are doing the work for free or next to free. This particular model, I want to say, cost me something like $40 or something. I don't own the exclusive rights to it, but I don't have to. Here we go. Here's the yeah. I'll pull a couple of these and show you. The reason I like this actually, to compare the two, especially, is because to me they look like they're made by the same company, and they're made by the same artist. But when you see them together, I just think it's wicked cool. One more. So here we go. We're back. All right, got what I needed. So here's the exploration ship. This is the, it's an exploration ship. It's not a warship, and its only weapons and defense is speed. It's built with speed, and then its meaner cousin or half brother is this guy. And we're working on the textures for that now. The textures for the warship is going to be much darker, much less reflective, and I'm thinking that the leading edges of this thing, the front, everything to the left, facing left, I'm going to have like a dark metal texture, kind of a satin thing, not too reflective for most of the hull. And then I want to have the leading front edges of all of this being kind of almost like a black rubber, so that it's, when you point this thing nose on, you get like this radar absorbing effect. I love the two of them together. I just think they look so cool. And I haven't fully figured out what the scale difference is, I think, but they're fantastic. Here's one more of the warship, which I'm going to go with Challenger on this one. And it looks good now, but when Sammy's finished with the textures, it's going to be absolutely amazing. And also, since we're doing a little sci-fi, which is certainly happy for me because I've been talking a lot of politics lately, I've been playing around with this. Front is to the left on both of those. So I've been toying with this quite a bit. When I originally wrote these stories back in 2005 or 6, this first round of Aurora stories, I wanted the main weapon, to be a railgun. But railguns are everywhere now. Everybody's using railguns. One thing I did, though, is I'm going to have this guy, the lead guy, main character for the naval combat story, be kind of a John Paul Jones. In fact, I'm going to specifically have the people that are kind of the founding fathers basically tell him about John Paul Jones and say, look, John Paul Jones was the only captain in the Revolutionary War who knew what he was doing, and he never got one of the warships. Everything he did with converted sloops, and Bonhomme Richard was originally a fat, slow merchant named the Duc de Duras, and he managed to beat a British man of war with that ship. And these founding fathers are basically going to say, we're not going to make that mistake again. So they're going to get this guy and use him, and basically say to him, design what you want. We don't have the money or the resources to fight against this enormous power of the Earth or the United States or whatever, the Terran Autonomous Zone or whatever. It's a typical kind of that argument where you got, like the Israelis, for example, they're badly outnumbered, and they have to have such a tremendous qualitative advantage to make up for their quantitative deficiencies. So they basically tell this guy, design what you want. And the ship I just showed you, that battleship, not battleship, this guy here, he designs that. And basically he says, I want the smallest possible cross section from the nose. So if I point the nose of this thing, I want it to be the smallest possible cross section, and he's saying things like, because we got to compare it to other existing ships, and he says, and all of this stuff, secondary batteries and all this nonsense. He said, it's absurd. Take them off. What? You just get rid of them. Give me one BFG. I want a gun, a big gun. I want to be able to kill the enemy before he even knows I'm there. I want one shot, one kill kind of thing. So it's going to feel a whole lot more like subcombat and detection and silence and stuff. Once you're detected, everything lights up. Then it's just evasion and point defense, and that's kind of cool too. So I'm actually thinking maybe I'm kind of coming back to the idea of like a really big honking laser. Because of the range aspects to it. I haven't figured that out yet, but I know it's going to be cool. And it's going to be very long range engagement ranges. I'm looking forward to having a shot where 2 or 3 ships are moving out, like maybe 4 or 5 ships on a fleet action, and you look out the window and you can just barely make out that speck of light has got structure to it, and that's like point blank range. I'm really tired of this. Really tired of this. The original Star Trek was great because the original Star Trek didn't have the budget to combine the Klingons and the Federation in the same shot. So you'd see the Enterprise shoot, and you could use that shot 100 times, and they did. Enterprise shoots, and then the Klingon ship shoots, and they seem like they were a long way away, which is good. Now, I think Star Wars really did this. Now, you get these gigantic battleships, and they're literally, maybe a quarter of a mile apart, just blasting each other back and forth at point blank range. It's just silly. It's silly. And so it's going to be fun to be able to take all of this stuff and make it as realistic as possible, and then not only make it realistic. We need to make it realistic and dramatic. It's got to be different, and it's got to be cool. But this engagement range, and another thing that started with Next Generation, which is just appalling to me, and sadly, I think Star Trek Axanar is one of the worst examples of this, and that's this idea of ships the size of the Enterprise also functioning like fighter jets, where you got these these huge ships that are rolling and circling, and they want their cake and eat it too. It's just absurd. It really bothers me quite a bit. Oh, we missed. Really? Yeah. How far away was the target? It's almost 1.5 miles. Yeah. Well, lead them a little more next time. So anyway, for that warship, one more time, this guy, he's basically going to say, I want whatever mass we're going to put on this ship, I want it in a line so that when I point it at who I'm shooting at, all they see is highly radar absorbing front material, and I want the biggest gun that we can build, and I'm going to build the I'm going to build the ship around the gun. It's going to be an A-10. It's going to be the A-10 of space, and that's great. And funny, isn't it? I don't know if that's just part of America, our background, and the way we value things. But if you think about it, every kind of a battle that we always we like being outnumbered with better weapons. We never seem to be on the side of um, the human wave kind of things. The only examples I'm thinking of that might be different is something like Independence Day or something. But by and large, we really like the idea that we've got. It seems somehow American to have smaller numbers of better weapons than to have larger numbers of poorer weapons. It just, I don't know, just suits us, I guess. Suits me anyway. And one final thing, one of the just because we're on our little science fiction free, then we'll get to the questions. But one of the issues that I used to think about this quite a lot, and I used to read Stephen Dan Best over at USS Clueless. He had a lot of thoughts about this too, and the argument is that that there is no way to mask a ship, even at solar system ranges, even hundreds of thousands, if not even millions of miles away. We're able to detect, with today's technology, we're able to detect such minute signals. I remember hearing that Voyager, even when Voyager was in the solar system, the energy of Carl Sagan said the energy coming back from Voyager was less than the energy of a snowflake hitting the ground. And since these ships have to have drives, and since they have to have life support, they're much, much hotter than the background material. CP Tomes asks, USS Clueless, where did he go? Steve Den Best gave up on the political stuff many years ago, 2004 or 5 or something, 2006, the latest, I guess. He got into, did nothing but talk about anime and hentai. He was just, that's all he talked about, used that incredible brain of his on that. And then he died a few years ago. I met him, he lived in Orange County, I want to say. Met him for about 15 minutes back in the day when he was linking to me, and he was a real agoraphobe. He was real uncomfortable being outside, but he was just one of the best thinkers I've ever met. He has an enormous effect on me, and he and Glenn Reynolds together just got me started. Anyway, he wrote a lot about this and basically said that there is no way to avoid detection. And then people would start arguing, and they'd say, well, we could cool it. Yeah, well, people think that space is cold, but space really doesn't have a temperature. It's actually very hard to get rid of heat in space. That's a good argument for not having a laser, by the way. As a matter of fact, since we're on an unannounced science fiction episode here, which makes me happy, by the way, and we will get to those questions in a minute. The problem with a laser, especially, is you got to get rid of the heat. And people think, well, space is cold. Space has no temperature. It's a vacuum. That's why a thermos works. The thermos, it keeps drinks cold and it keeps drinks hot. How does it know? There's the inner flask, the outer flask, and in between them is a vacuum. And that heat or that cold's got nowhere to go. So the best way to radiate heat is to take it away with a liquid, and that's why water cooling is so effective. I want to say, if I remember correctly, water is something like 600 times denser than air. So if you can't water cool it, you can air cool it. But even if you air cool it, you're still blowing the heat away. You're literally carrying it away with convection. In space, you don't get to do any of those things. You have to radiate it. And there's nothing really to radiate it to. There's no temperature gradient. There's nothing cold on the side of the radiator. You can radiate it, but it's not nearly as efficient. When I was dealing with the idea of a enemy ship, a Chinese ship that had a giant laser, I was thinking that the thing was had this huge spherical bulge in the middle, and nobody knew what it was. But what it was Helio says it seems logical to use that heat for power. Obviously, it's waste heat, and you can't get around the problem of waste heat. If you've got a if you've got 1,000 megawatt laser, some portion, significant portion of that, when you fire it, is just not converted. It just becomes waste heat. And what I thought I would do with that giant sphere, the big reveal was, what's this enormous sphere in the middle of this thing, and why is this ship so slow? And it turned out that what it was they'd actually taken the center of the ship and just turned it into a giant sphere of water. And basically, because they were taking that water with them, they were able to cool this laser fast enough to get the rate of fire up. And that was a bad shock for everybody on our team. And along those lines, I'm looking at somebody else's work. As I said, I didn't commission this thing, so just an interesting thought. Let me see if I can find an angle. Hang on a sec. Yeah. Okay, so if you look at this shot, if you look more or less in the middle, on the bottom, you'll see what looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's like 7 little squares there. Everybody see those? They're just a little bit forward of the middle on the bottom of this vessel. And I'm thinking, well, maybe I will go with a giant laser on this thing. It'd give you long range, and this guy wants to be able to kill things at long distance. And I'm thinking maybe I would have those be missile bays or something, and I might still do that. But when I was thinking it over, I thought, it'd be kind of cool if these things were filled with some material that was really relatively lightweight, but also relatively dense. And every time they fired the laser, the heat would go into one of those boxes, and then it would get ejected, and it'd almost be like a clip. Or maybe it wouldn't get ejected, or maybe it could be ejected if it needed to. But basically, that'd give you 7 shots. It's towards the far right in this picture. You'd have 7 shots with this thing. It's almost like a magazine, and instead of it supplying the power, it supplies the cooling. And you don't want to eject it unless you have to, because it's a heat source. But when you're in a full-on shooting war, once they know you're shooting at them, stealth isn't that important. Somebody says that sounds exactly like thermal clips from Mass Effect. I had not heard about those things. Sometimes you come to different ideas in better ways. But in any way. The railguns don't generate an awful lot of heat, but a laser does. Energy weapons do. And so this kind of thing, nobody's seen this. I've never seen it before. I've never seen combat where people are talking about we're limited to the amount of weapons that we can fire, or the amount of rate of fire is limited to how quickly we can get rid of heat. Just never, ever heard of that. So I did not realize that about Mass Effect. If I did, it's cool. But in any event, these are the kind of things that I'm thinking about. And I'm thinking about countermeasures. Missiles are real effective, and I know the Expanse uses missiles and torpedoes a lot, and they have the point defense cannons and so on. And then you have the idea of, okay, so the missile gets to a certain range and then it explodes and becomes a shotgun shell, and how do you stop that? And then I've been playing around with the idea of I've just been playing with a lot of ideas. Now, one thing, I keep coming back to this, it's nice to say, I think this thing's going to have basically one spinal mount that goes right down the center of it. And this guy's entire doctrine is we need to be able to detect enemy targets before they detect us and simply take them out. And I don't want a running gunfight. I want to assassinate these people. That's basically how submarine commanders think anyway. And it's just, I don't know, it's just different and kind of cool. So we'll see. Oh, I remember. So the whole idea about detection and so on, and I haven't figured out whether this will work or not yet, but I don't know why it didn't occur to me earlier. There's a tremendous one of the best things I've ever read. Honestly, if you're an Aliens fan, you need to get this book. It's called the Colonial Marines Handbook. It's available used on eBay. and I think there's a version. I know there is a version of it online. It's fantastic. It's just beautifully written, really beautifully written, very very technical, and it breaks down all the things in Aliens, and all the weapons. And there's little quotes and bits from like actual combat, like some soldiers talking about using the smart gun in combat and how creepy it was that this thing would just immediately just lock onto somebody's center of mass. It was a great, 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 great book. And when it was dealing with space combat, it showed what it called a decoy balut. And basically, it was a balloon that had the general shapes of the Sulaco. I mean, just, imagine a Mylar balloon Sulaco. And the idea would be that you would, if you got detected, you'd launch this decoy balut, and then one would go one way and the other would go the other way. And now, presumably, if the decoy's good enough, they have a 50% chance of hitting you. And if you deployed 3 of them, you would have a 1/3 chance, and so on. That's how decoys work. They have them in submarines. It's called the MOLL, is it? MOL? Something like that. It's a little mini torpedo, and they launch it. It makes noises exactly like the sub does, and then presumably the weapons platforms and the torpedoes go at Moss. Thank you. Then they go after the Moss, and it goes sailing away and pulls all the weapons towards it. But I had this thought, and I thought, great, okay, so I will automatically have these decoys, inflatable decoys come out. And then I thought, everybody's been talking about how you can't have the cooling because the cooling has to be radiated and so on. But, oh, hey, there it is. D Tolly gets it on the comment section. But, I thought, okay, so let's just say you're out there cruising along and you're either detected or you don't want to be detected. Could you not put a black balloon in front of you, like a black disc, and it's just big enough to cover the front end of the ship, and it's basically just a flat disc, and it's completely radar reflective and light reflective, and heat. It's opaque to heat. If you put a black disc out in front of this thing, I think that would actually work. Now, obviously, the minute you start moving, you move out of the disc, and if you give the disc propulsion, then it's got its own heat issues. But if you had like a super cooled balloon, put it out in front of you there, you might actually be able to mask yourself that way. I'm going to give that some thought. I don't think that would. I don't think that wouldn't work. I really like that a lot. Yeah, aspect on target bearing problem is this is why you got to assume that this is why the guy wants the big gun. He knows that everybody knows that the cross section is everything. So you minimize your cross section one way, you maximize it the other way. Yeah, space ghillie suit, says Tim Morris. I love thinking these things through, and I love thinking them through with people who get it. And just paint the ship black is great. Aesop says the problem with that is that you're not talking about active radar or anti-reflective, anti-radar coatings useful against active radar. Your problem is you're generating heat, and that's something you can detect passively. Anyway, I guess it's that'll do it for this. I'm getting a little dizzy, to be honest with you. I'm getting a little lightheaded. Anyway, it's exciting and really encouraging to talk about this and have people be excited about it. So let's knock out these questions on the members only forum, and we'll see what we get here. So let's have a look. Scott was kind enough to set these up. Oh wow! No, that's fantastic. Let me move this over here. I'll show it to you guys right now. It's not so much a question, but it's from Chris Goodwin, new member. And basically he says, do you like it? Hire me. And so what are we talking about? Well, I'll tell you. Look, check this out, gang. It's kind of cool, huh? Yes, I do like it. I think it's wicked cool. Who's that handsome devil there behind the Jetsons thing? The Jetsons design motif is just fantastic. I love it. I just love it. Thank you very much for that. I'm gonna have to figure out how to work that in. It's just grand. Um, yeah, I love everything about it, and congratulations on the design choice because you can't go wrong with the Jetsons. I like him meet Bill Whittle. Uh, so yeah, that's wild, man. I may have to print that up and put it in the wall in the background someplace. It's very cool. Thank you very much for that, Chris. And yes, let's talk. I'm not really in a position to really hire people just yet, but I I love it, and and the comment section loves it too. So thank you very much for that. And let's see what we got next here. Okay. Uh, Here's a voting TSL question. If states mandate that mail-in unsolicited ballots are legal, should conservative voters go low and create multiple illegal ballots to offset the leftist illegal ballots? I have not seen the courts prosecuting cases of voter fraud. In fact, our government claims our elections are now the most fair and transparent ever. Yes. Oh, hey, Steve. Yes. Uh, the problem is not. I have an ethical problem with it, although my ethical problems are rapidly thinning as I continue to see the depths to which our opponents stoop. But put that aside for a minute. The problem, as I see it, is not. It's no longer a question of who's getting the most ballots. If um, if the theories and the math and all the statistics are correct, the more Republican ballots you put into the system, the more the voting machines flip them. That's basically how they work. They they decide what percentage they want the Democrat to win by, and they want it to be close if it looks close. So if Trump is getting 2 votes for every Biden vote, the analysis that I've seen that seems convincing, and I'm generalizing here, is that if that's the case, then the bigger the Trump lead is, the more votes get flipped, and then areas where his lead is smaller, you have to flip less and less, and where he's not leading at all, you don't have to flip at all. You want the minimum kind of footprint, and so this kind of thing is not going to work. So here's the problem right here. Lord Bio says Massachusetts is moving to make mail-in ballots standard. Anyone who requested one last year gets one automatically forever moving forward. This is the trend, and there's no way out of it. It is the end of elections if this continues. And the only way to beat this, and this is not a Massachusetts problem, this is a federal problem now, it's a problem for all of us. Only way to beat it is to flood the zone and capture enough seats in the Massachusetts state assemblies. I know that seems like an impossible job, but again, and I'm not going to get too deep into this now, we talk about it a lot. If you had national resources, if you had the money available to Trump supporters, and you put them into races with a great deal of care, you would have to. I don't know of any way else to do it, to be honest with you guys. I just don't know how. I don't know. There may be another way. I can't think of it. The only way to get rid of crooked election laws, you can't. You just have to change it on the state level. And people are saying, well, then they'll cheat on those elections too, and that may be true as well. But I don't know what else to do about it. I just think that the case has to be made for this, and you have to just go right at that. If you can't have fair elections, then the whole system comes apart, and that seems to be what they're working on. So it's got to be a different kind of politics. It has to be a movement, and I think the way to do it is to is to make it an issue. I want to say I brought this up in the, I think I mentioned this on the Ramona thing when we were talking about this. Uh, and the great ideas, or maybe it was a Stratosphere Lounge. I don't remember, honestly. But one thought I had was, um, if I was going to do this, what I would do is uh, I'd have 100 people on a set, on a stage, or something like that. And I would have 20 of them be Trump supporters in red shirts, and they would say Trump. And I'd have 20 Bernie supporters with the Bernie logos on their T-shirts, and I'd have 20 people from the Green Party, and I'd have 20 people from Libertarian Party, and I'd basically do all of that. And I would have them stand aside in groups, and then I would basically figure out what the script was going to say, and have them mixed together, and have them say, "We disagree on everything. We disagree on everything. But the one thing we all agree on is that our votes are being stolen and that our voices are being silenced by a corrupt system." And it was at the Ramona event because there's a woman down there who's really the specialist on election fraud in California. And I talked with her for quite a long time, and she's really understands it. And she says that she is hearing from Bernie supporters. Bernie supporters are contacting Trump supporters because they have been robbed as well. And I think that's I think that's I think that's the only answer. I really do. I think that's the only way to defend against the ongoing constant attack. If you got everybody up there and said this isn't a Trump issue, it's not a conservative issue, not a Republican issue. The Green Party in California, just take them as an example. I'm about as opposed to the Green Party as any party I can be, but I'd much rather be governed by a Green candidate who won legally than who the elites have determined to us. And California has this insane, ridiculous, anti-democratic system among everything else that's insane in California. In California, the election is no longer between the Republican and the Democrat. It's among the top two. So if the Democratic Party puts out two candidates and the second candidate gets more than the Republican, then the election is not between a Republican and a Democrat. It's between a Democrat and another Democrat. And this completely locks out Republicans and it locks out Green Party people, it locks out Constitutional Party, locks out Libertarians, locks them out. They're not even in the game, not even in the fight. And I think if you went to, this is the kind of thinking that's going to get us out of this. The only thing that's going to get us out of it is to put the pride aside and just go and say, just run right at them and just call up the Bernie people and say, listen, you guys got ripped off. And we got ripped off too. And we're sick of it. And we need to fix this system. And we're willing to be sharing a stage with you in order to convince the voters that this has to go. And you're just as Lord Bios says, it's ranked choice voting is a scam to disenfranchise 30 to 40% of the voters, at least that many. And I think this is the kind of guerrilla messaging that's the only thing that's going to work. How do you, if you're defending this, how do you attack that ad? It's easy to attack an ad of Trump supporters. You say they're just a bunch of right-wing Nazi white supremacists who are sore about losing an election. It's much harder for them to attack the Bernie people because once they steal the vote from Bernie, they can count on those people to vote for them. And it's hard to steal the vote from Greens, hard to criticize the Greens, rather, because they tend to be the radical left. And if you got all of those people there, you'd have a powerful movement. Guys, I'm telling you, I really determined to finishing these questions, but in the last 10 minutes or so, I've started to get kind of sick. I'm feeling a little ill. I don't know why, but I am. And I feel like I am going to have to cut this one short. I don't think I've ever done that before. I don't think I've ever. I don't know why. I'm just feeling a little sick all of a sudden. And I'm not being metaphorical here. I'm kind of a little bit lightheaded and feeling little nauseous. Nauseous. So, for those of you whose questions I didn't get to, my apologies, and I will get to them next time. We'll put them in a bin and all that stuff. I spent too much time talking about this other stuff in the beginning, and I'm sorry about that. But in any event, thank you for the kind words in the comment section. Dehydration. You know what? I'll bet you anything that's it. Yeah, I think it's actually time for me to go. So no live show tomorrow, and I will do a show, but it's not live. And I'm sorry to have to leave like this. I'm embarrassed. I feel like I've had to excuse myself from my own party. But in any event, probably better. This is something I learned from flying. If you start feeling airsick, and I didn't feel airsick often, but if you're up, I was taking aerobatic lessons, and they said, "Let me know the second you start feeling sick," and it's like that's good advice. And I'm starting to feel a little bit like that now, actually. So I'm afraid we're gonna have to call this one a little short tonight, and I'm sorry about that. But thank you again for being here, and I'll post this directly, or I'll probably post it tomorrow, to be honest with you. And thanks again for the members, old and new, both of you, who've done so much. Hail Vectron, and it's great to talk to all of you again. And thanks again for the support and the encouragement. I really needed that tonight. So I guess we will see you next Thursday, and I'll try and make those questions up to the folks on the in the comment section there. All right. So again, thanks for joining us, and sorry to duck out early, and we will see you next Thursday.